Okay, welcome in. In this video, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about a cool chess position I recently had. I'm a big fan of chess. If you are too and you like this video, leave a comment. I'll try to make more content like this. So I'm playing with white pieces here, and it is black to move. Let's talk about the position first before we sort of get into the analysis. I've kind of all game had this really nice queen and bishop battery that's really pinning the knight to the f5 square. Because if the knight moves, then the queen will sort of happily deliver this mate on h7. I also kind of have my rooks nicely doubled on the G file, so kind of they're ready to apply pressure. Again, if the knight moves or if the rook moves, and then I have my bishop and knight also ready to jump into the attack. My opponent sort of was looking for a move here, and I think it's really tough to find a good defensive move for black. The engine recommends kind of just pushing b4. I think the idea here is that white does not want to allow black to sort of get a passed pawn so far deep, kind of near the king. So after takes, the queen can take with check here. And it's trickier here for white to find a good move. E2 looks really natural, keeping the king kind of off the back rank. But then bishop to b5 would win the queen by pinning the queen to the king. So instead, probably white would play kind of e1 here, or sorry, e1 would still be check. White would play d1 here, but then kind of the rook is able to come down with check. Probably, or actually, I'm sorry, that wouldn't even work. The king would have to play. Let me get back to that position. The king would probably play c1, then rook comes down, bishop blocks, or something like this, and you know, black certainly has some counterplay, right? Like the bishop is pinned to the king. The king is kind of wide open. This rook can jump into the attack. I might not have even defended well as white here, but the point is, black has some really good options if he pushes the pawn and white takes the pawns. But instead of that, my opponent just sort of pushed this pawn, played g6. I think the idea was that he really wanted to cement his knight on f5. And so kind of the knight can move and jump into the attack if it wants to. But it's never a good idea to move pawns in front of your king, especially when your king is under so much attack. And especially this pawn was doing a really nice job of protecting the black squares near the king. G6 really weakens those squares. So I played bishop f6 with check, and this is a really strong bishop that's kind of going to be the star of this position, as you'll see. The king sort of has one square to go to, and this is the move he played, which is h7 to kind of move with the king. But as we'll see, that creates a really powerful and actually totally unstoppable mating attack. It's better here if you block with the knight or if you block with the rook. Both are still losing positions for black. You know, white can kind of continue the attack. If he wants, he can exchange the bishop for the rook, although that's probably not the best move here. But blocking would be best in this scenario, although king h7 looks natural. And here white has an amazing attack. So I played, after thinking about it for a while, I played knight g5 with check. Here the king has no squares to move to, so this is a just total knight sack. Only option is to take with the pawn. And it looks like I've completely wasted a knight for nothing. I just delivered check and then the knight was taken. But I've opened up this really nice H file for my pieces to get to his king. And again, as you'll repeatedly see, the bishop is kind of preventing it from retreating by covering these dark squares. So here I moved the queen to H3 to check his king. And again, the king has nowhere to move. The only two options are knight H4, which would lose in 2 moves to checkmate. So instead, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. And where's that? Sorry about that. Boom, check, knight sack, pawn takes, queen takes. So instead, what he played, instead of knight to h4, he played the correct knight to h6. And you know, the knight is protected by the king. It's blocking the queen. But here I used my excellent dark squared bishop and took on g5. So played bishop g5. And now we have 2 pieces attacking the knight, the queen and the bishop, and the knight cannot move. It is pinned to the king. And this knight is going to fall. Ooh, I did not mean to move that pawn. This knight is going to fall. All of his pieces are sort of not able to defend his knight. Maybe if his queen was on the back rank, it could sort of move to f8 and defend the knight, but this knight is going to fall. He's going to lose knight, which might be okay because right, I just sacked a knight. So here I think many of us would try to run away with king to g7. This loses to mate in one with queen to h6. So instead, he played the correct rook to h8, which kind of opens up an escape route for his king. But I ignored that, and I just took with the queen on h6, play check, one legal move here, which is king to g8. And this is why kind of that bishop or that rook move here kind of looks so nice, right? Because after the queen takes, after the king moves, this rook is attacking the queen, and the queen actually has nowhere to move. The queen, cannot escape on the diagonal. It could sort of move closer to the king. You could take with the pawn, but the queen is going to be captured on the next turn. So, this might look like the attack has totally fizzled out and we're about to lose a queen. But that's exactly what I did. I just played queen captures with h on h8, and then the king takes the queen here. And if we're just looking at material, white has the bishop pair and two rooks, but black has a queen. Material looks sort of even, but there's actually an unstoppable kind of quick mate here for white. So I kicked that off with bishop with rook to h4, putting the king in check, and the king has two moves here. If the king kind of tries to escape and plays king to g7, I just play bishop to f6, checking the king. King has two legal moves. Either of them will end in checkmate when the rook comes down. So instead, my opponent, instead of kind of bringing the king out, my opponent tried to escape this way by playing g8. And here, a really nice finishing move is bishop f6. And now this bishop is doing a great job kind of cutting off any potential, I guess I should highlight these squares, potential escapes the king could have. If the king moves here, right, the bishop is still cutting off this escape from the king. And there is no way, the king can only move here. There's no way for any of the other pieces to come to the defense of rook to h8 checkmate. If we just made some silly move like bishop here, then rook h8 mates the king. You could make a extremely silly move by taking with the queen, takes back with a pawn. That's kind of what the computer would do, but you still are not going to be able to stop this checkmate. So really fun attacking position. Never move pawns in front of your king when you can help it. But I think the real motto is that when you sort of get all these attacking pieces lined up, ready to go against the opponent's king, a lot of really cool combinations happen. So that's that, and hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk soon.